We are live. How you doing, Jennifer?
I'm good. How are you today?
I'm doing okay. Let me get my theme song ready, and we're gonna make this thing jump off. Three, two, one. We'll be back after this.
That's right. We're on live. We're gonna get this thing done one way or another. What's up to y'all?
Back once again. What's up, Jennifer?
Hey,
My co-host, girl. Going live is a mother. You know what I'm saying?
mother for you.
Yeah,
That's what
exactly.
we're
All
doing.
these
Mother for you.
technical difficulties and things like that. What's happening out there on the West Coast?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't been out the house in a week. I've been at home with a sick baby.
Oh, really? Well, I hope she
I'm just
feels better.
outdoors. I can't wait to go outside tomorrow.
Oh, and feel that. Get some of that. That what's that? It's vitamin C.
Vitamin D.
Oh, vitamin D, C, all the
Yeah,
alphabets. You get all
vitamin D
since she ain't been out
activated.
there in a while. Get all the alphabets. How about that?
All of the vitamins.
Hmm.
Yes.
Well, welcome to everyone. This is Third Eye Visions, where we motivate the blind, stimulate your mind, and welcome all kind. Today we're going to be talking about which is easier to do. But before we jump into that, we are live. First of all, we want to let everybody know that you should be subscribing right now. You should be hitting the notification bell right now. You should be commenting right now. You should be doing it all. Ain't that right, Jay?
Yes. Like, share.
Comment, because this ain't an easy task to do, especially if you ain't got too much help. But anyway, also y'all, when y'all get time, also check out my girl at uh Jennifer's Open Book. And Jennifer, how do you spell that now? Because sometimes I get it twisted. You heard me?
It's JINNERFER.
Okay, apostrophe S
Apostrophe S.
space
Space. Open book.
OPEN space BO.
BOOK.
Okay, cool. So now that we got that spelling quiz or test out of the way, which is easier to do? Jennifer, I'm gonna pose this question. You live as a blind woman, live as a black woman, and of course for me, because I know you can't do it. Me living as a black man or a blind man, and I want to pose this question to you, and hopefully to all my audiences out there. One, two, how many? And let them ponder about it. Um, I'm gonna let you go first, Jennifer, and ask you briefly. What do you think has been a hard task for you to do over your 85 years on this earth?
Woo! Oh, 85. I look good for 85 though. Look good.
All right, she all right, but I wouldn't know that. So anyway, what has been more hard
um,
for you to
the
do?
most you want to know which one is most difficult, like being blind or being a black woman?
Well, we'll speak on the black woman first, and then you can answer the second question.
I mean, neither one is like I mean, it's no walk in the park, but um, I've said this before. I think that it's harder to be a black man in this world than a black woman. A lot of black women have it; they do have a hard time. I think that me being blind factors in with uh, my difficulties. In some ways, it can be easier for me, and in some ways, it can be more difficult. Um, the more difficult as being blind is the obstacles that come with being blind, not being able to like be spontaneous when you have a spontaneous spirit like I do, not being able to uh, do certain things that I would do if I could see, because I have it in me to do those things. Being blind, it makes me feel oppressed sometimes, which is probably a good thing. I tell people all the time that when God created me, He made me blind because He looked at me, so I got to put some brakes on this girl because I would be like fast and all over the place.
Mm.
Um, being a black woman comes with its own obstacles. Being black, we're at the bottom of the food chain for the
Mhm.
most part. You have to deal with discrimination within the system sometimes. I don't get a lot of it, and I think that some people are more sympathetic towards me in some cases because I am blind. There are some things that I can get away with, and some things I don't mind getting away. I don't mind getting away with. Like, uh, I got arrested during a protest, and I didn't get treated the same way everyone else got treated who got arrested during that protest. I got handcuffed with my hands in front of me. Everybody else had their hands behind them. My cuffs were loose enough for me to slide my hand out of. I didn't do it, but they were loose enough, and I was grateful for that because people's circulation was getting cut off, and that wasn't happening to me. And I don't think that other people should be treated that way. I don't think that that's how you treat people, especially people who were peacefully protesting.
Mhm.
I don't think that they should be treated like criminals, but I got kind of special treatment. I didn't get locked in a cell with everybody else. I got to sit in a chair in the hall and wait to be processed and everything.
Okay.
So in some cases, I do get like special treatment because I'm blind, and it kind of takes away from the difficulty of being a black woman. I'm aware of a black woman's struggles. I have a black woman's struggles, but I don't think that it's as hard as it would be if I could see.
And that's what I want to. I'm glad you touched on that about the outside forces that may come about by being a blind person. Let's talk about briefly the job situation. Do you think that it's harder because you are blind, or people discriminate against you because you are blind, or because you're a woman, because you're a black blind woman? Focus on those circumstances, and let me know what you think about that.
So jobs, I get so aggravated because they want to automatically put blind people in factory jobs or call center jobs, which is just like I think me and you talked about this. It's pretty much an assembly line when you're in a call center.
Hmm.
If you could picture it as an assembly line, the way that the cars are coming in, they go down the line. Um, going into each phone. So those are the kind of jobs that we end up in. And while I don't have a degree, I know people who do have degrees, and they still end up in these kind of jobs. They're not getting jobs in their field, in the field that they went to school for and have to pay student loans for. And of course, the jobs are not going to come out and say, we're not giving you this job because you're blind,
Hmm.
because they don't want to face lawsuits. But it does, that this factors in. And again, I'll give you an example with me. I was working for Marriott for about 5 years. I was an on the job trainer, which means when they brought a new blind person in, they would call me to come in, teach them the basics on how to use the computer and take reservations. At some point, I ended up completely training these people, and they had a fault. It was something that happened with the NFB because when I went into the job, we had a separate class for the visually impaired. We were the first class to come in to train for this job. I had been there for a couple of years before they asked me to be an OJT, and they put me in a class with two blind people who were in the class with everyone else. Now, JAWS worked differently with the system, with their reservation system. So I had to literally train these people on how to work the system using JAWS. The reason why this was a problem is because there's someone training a whole class in the same room. So it's hard to focus when you have someone talking over you, teaching another class in the same room. But because of the issue with the National Federation for the Blind, they could not separate the class.
Mm.
Um, so these people ended up going out on the floor, not quite ready for what they were getting themselves into. And I had to spend another week working with them, going in between them and I was getting paid like 25 cents more, whereas a trainer got paid, I think, like $7 more than I was getting paid, something like that, per
Okay.
hour.
And how
So
do
I applied, and I'm sorry this is taking so long. I applied for the training job because it came up they needed a new trainer.
mm,
So I went to apply. I should say I went to apply for the job, and I spoke to someone, to the human resources manager, and he says, well, we can't separate the classes. I said, I understand. I could just teach the whole class. So he says, well, how are you going to do that? I said, the way that I teach them. So he says, well, we use the overhead. How are you going to do that? I said, you push a button. He said, well, how are you going to read the materials? I said, are the materials on the computer? He said, yes. I said, email them to me. I have the materials. And his answer was, I don't know. We'll see. You have to go through the whole management training. So you have to do all of the jobs in a hotel.
mm,
And my question to him was, what's the problem? Well, you have to do housekeeping. I clean up my own house. You don't think that I can clean up a hotel room? Like he had all of these different reasons why I couldn't do this job. And I gave him every reason
why you
and every example of why I could do this job. And at the end of the day, he had discouraged me enough to not apply for this job, which was my mistake. I should have applied for that job. And when I didn't get hired for that job, bring up that conversation that I had with him, because he was pretty much discriminating, just outright discriminate. I don't think that you could do this job. But
right.
it's the job that I'm doing, you know what I mean? And eventually I got sick of taking reservations because I'm just repeating myself. And then they had me like fixing people's computer, and they're paying an IT person to do this, but she doesn't know anything about JAWS but how to load it onto the computer. And all you do is put the disk in and follow the directions. So
Exactly.
you know what I mean? And they have me doing all of this different stuff, but they don't want to pay me for it. So I ended up just quitting the job and going back to school for massage therapy. What I should have done was stayed there, applied for that job, and not let him tell me no.
Okay.
But I didn't do that, and I was young and impatient and a little bit stressed out about work and home and stuff that was going on in my life. But yeah, I if I say yes, they it's really difficult, and it's hard getting a job being a black person who does not have an impairment. It's difficult.
Well,
So to have an impairment, sometimes it makes it even more difficult.
coming from a man's perspective, I I haven't. I graduated from a predominantly white school. I haven't really experienced any racism or anything like that. But I'm not naive to the fact that it does not exist. But as far as in the job force, um, I know that I already have some strikes against me. So definitely, I have to definitely prove myself. Uh, Work a little harder in order for me to try to get the job. And you're right. Most of the jobs that are available are factory type jobs. So as a in essence to the question that we pose, which is easier, I don't know that if there is a answer to which one is easier, living as a blind man or a black woman, blind woman, whatever. We are basically focusing and experiencing challenges from each one. But as a whole, as I ask you, what do you think would be actually harder to actually do, or you think all three of them are weigh the same on a if you were to weigh them on a
I
scale?
think I think all of it has its difficulties. If you're a blind person, even like a blind Caucasian or Mexican, or I think that being blind um, is a hurdle in itself, and it is difficult to get the kind of jobs that you qualify for. And it's best that you do have an education. If you have an education, you have a degree, you could go in there and say, this is what I do.
Mm,
I got this degree. um, I'm qualified for this job. And you have to go in with confidence. I got hired at Marriott because I went in there with full confidence. Every question that the person asked me who was interviewing me, I answered confidently. Even if, it was something that I wasn't confident in.
mhm.
I went in there like, this is my job. That was my frame of mind when I walked through the door. I'm already hired. I'm just going through the motions.
Mhm.
And in the middle of the interview, she says, "You know what? I'm going to hire you. I have to finish the interview, but you already have the job. I love your personality. You have a great laugh. You are perfect for this job."
Mhm.
And I had the job because I had the confidence and I knew that I could do it. So it's best that when you do go into a place, you go in there with confidence. Um, you it's good. Don't take no for an answer. Like if they say, "Oh, we hired someone else," ask them. I was actually taught to ask questions like, "Was there something
Else that you can do.
else that I could have done that would have made you choose me for this job or something?" Something that you can take on to your next interview. But don't let it discourage you from trying to do what you qualify to do. There are multiple companies that are hiring for your field. That's not the only place.
Mhm.
I didn't want to work in a call center anymore, so I didn't apply for any more call center jobs. I could have got a job at an insurance company or a credit card company or AAA because I had that experience. And they might have let me come in on the floor and they might have given me a chance to advance where
Mhm.
Marriott didn't. But I didn't want to do that anymore. I did that long enough and that's not what I wanted to do with my life. It's better for just don't let people discourage you.
Oh, definitely, definitely, definitely. So instances like that, and I understand that you have to develop a positive attitude when it comes to uh, trying to get some type of gainful employment. The chances of people taking that chance on you is slim to none. So sometimes that may happen, sometimes they don't. Because I've experienced situations where I've done all those particular things, and like, man, they still haven't chosen me. But as we move on to like go back to what you were talking about in prior at the top, in terms of uh, what is easier, there I've experienced in my younger days the me wanting to move about as freely as possible, and at that time I felt like living life as a blind person was very hard because like you mentioned, you can't really spontaneously move, do what you want to do, and as opposed to if you had sight, you could just get up and go. Do you want to expound a little bit more about that before we go to the next topic?
Um, like I said, I'm a spontaneous person and it bothers me not to be able to like I might be sitting here and all of a sudden I'll be like, you know what? I want to go buy a new pair of shoes. I can't do that. I probably could like call an Uber and go to a shoe store, but I don't want to go shoe shopping by myself
Right.
because I need someone to help me, pick out some shoes. I don't want to I like to be fashionable. So I like to have somebody with me with a eye for fashion.
Hmm.
And that person is not always available. That could be really difficult. And I've noticed that a lot of people are having difficulties in that area, and it kind of gets depressing. It actually touches on a subject that I'm going to talk about sometime this week about social isolation.
Well, we're holding.
But it's difficult not to be able to move the way that you want to, and it doesn't get any easier the older that you get. You have to find other ways to cope. If you feel like you want to go shopping or something, you might not be able to run out and go get a new pair of shoes or something. Go on Amazon and buy
Right.
something.
That's what I was gonna say.
Amazon
Like,
pretty much describes everything, so it's very easy to. I love Amazon. I have to put myself on Amazon fast.
and with the emergence of technology, do you feel that it has sort of made people's lives easier in the sense if you're visually impaired?
Oh,
Maybe just
so much easier, and it's getting better. I appreciate Apple. I don't appreciate how much Apple products cost because we were talking about MacBooks and how we need MacBooks, but Apple has done something that, and they did it first. Other people are finally trying to catch up. At one point, we would have either just had to memorize all of our phone numbers or buy a separate program to make our phones talk.
mhm.
And Apple just comes with that accessibility, in the settings. It just everything talks
Right, right.
and it's perfect. Netflix. Oh my goodness, Netflix. Thank you, Netflix, for putting the audio description on like almost everything on Netflix has audio description.
So
I,
it's true.
I love the people who are actually recognizing the fact that there are blind and visually impaired people in the world, and they're accommodating us. I also have Amazon Prime Television, and I have not gotten anything with the audio description on there yet. I don't know if there's anything on there, but I haven't heard it. But Netflix definitely. But
So thanks to technology, things have gotten a little
things have
easier.
gotten a lot easier.
It
It's
just
gotten
trying just trying to get people to understand that we are able-bodied persons, and we want to work and we can work. It's and people who are willing to give us a chance to do so. That's a task that we're gonna basically carry to our grave, because we're gonna have to kind of prove to each other and whatnot. Is it safe for me to ask this particular question? Like, and I know people have posed this question to you, because they've done it to me. What would you prefer? And as we talk about which is easier, what would you prefer to have been, like, living as a sighted black woman, or just by you being blind with the emergence of technology, it has been easier for you, so you don't really want your sight back, sort of, because people have asked me.
Of
Yeah,
course, of course, it would be easier to live with your sight. The only thing about it is if you never lost your sight, would you be able to appreciate things as much as you appreciate it now?
true, true.
My me and my pastor just had this conversation earlier. He prayed for me when I first went to the church, and he hasn't since then. And the reason why he hasn't since then is because we talked about how pastors always want to pray for me, and they want me to just be able to see just like that. And if I can't, a lot of them take
Or you don't
issue with
believe,
that.
or you got to. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
As we
And so he didn't do that. No, he didn't do that. But we were talking when we were talking about it after church, and he said, I believe that you're going to be able to see by March. And I said, I received that. I'll receive that blessing. But at the same time, if I'm not able to see by March, do you think that it's going to hurt me one way or another? And I asked him, I said, don't you think sometimes being able to see is a distraction? I can smell BS a mile away.
hmm
Whereas sometimes when you can see, all you can see is what's in front of you. You can,
right.
like, somebody will come up to you and they'll have pretty eyes and pretty skin, and you just think they're the most beautiful person in the world, and they're saying all the right things.
hmm
And because you're focusing on their beauty,
That's true.
you can't see the BS that they're handing you.
That's true.
You know what I mean? So I think that sometimes being able to see can be a distraction. It can get in your way. But I do believe that your life can, our lives can be a lot easier if we could see. And it would be even better if we knew, what we know now. It would help us not take for granted what people who can see take a lot for granted.
That's
And
true.
they don't notice it until they have a conversation with us, and they'll say, "Oh, I never thought about that." They think we're just worse off because we can't see, and that's not necessarily true.
And I like what you just stated about, if people who meet individuals, they more so are looking at the physical, as opposed to you know digging deep down into a person's mental, so to speak. Hence third eye, and understanding them in that capacity, as opposed to, man, she looks good or he looks good. So sometimes, being blind may have its advantages, and I agree with you as far as that statement and what have you. So, anything else you want to say before we wrap it up? Because I think we definitely got their minds wondering and thinking and what have you. And what you want to say? Anything?
Just when I was talking about being spontaneous, we can be spontaneous if we have the money to be spontaneous. You can hop in an Uber and go anywhere. I don't really. I will do things like I went to go see Phantom of the Opera by myself
Mm,
a couple of years ago, and my father insisted on taking me, but he had my baby, so he had to let me off at the curb. I was ready to take an Uber, but it was the first time that I went someplace by myself. like completely alone.
And doesn't
And
it
I
make
was
you feel good though when you
it made me feel really good. I was really nervous getting out of the car, and he actually stayed until I got in the building. He was a little bit nervous about it too. But the place was so packed because it was opening night, and it was at the Fox Theater in St. Louis. I love the Fox. But there was somebody outside kind of have putting people in line and where they need to be, and he saw me, called on the radio for an escort to come and get me, and someone came outside to get me, and they walked me through where they were taking the tickets. She offered to take me to the concession stand. I didn't need to go because I went across the street and got some stuff.
so in
And
essence,
it was some candy. It was a store that had a contract with the Fox,
mm,
so they allowed you to take their stuff in there, and it was like the best candy ever. They're closed now,
so in essence,
but
you were able
it
to.
was great because the lady she got me all the way to my seat, and she said that she was going to come back during intermission. And she did. And she came back and she asked me if I need to go to the bathroom or anything. I was worried that she was going to forget about me
Yeah.
because that happens. And that's a worry for us. Well, once we're out of people's sight, we feel like we're out of their mind.
Right,
But she
exactly.
did. She came back. And once it was over, she came back and she walked me back outside. And my dad was waiting there at the curb for me. And once I had that experience,
Mm,
I was like, oh, I can do this. Like, I
mhm.
can do this. I can do this regularly. So I'll go to the movies by myself. I'll go out to eat by myself. I will do things by myself now. So we can be spontaneous as long as we can afford to be spontaneous. Which brings me back to the job thing. A lot of us can't afford to be spontaneous
Right, right,
because of the job situation.
exactly.
So that was it. That's all I wanted to add. Just, you
But
know,
in life, that if you take the bull by its horn, so to speak, because I definitely can speak of a young gentleman who's just very much independent, and you and I are definitely independent too, as well. But I run into some blind people who are not as independent, and that in sense makes your life uneasy. So hence the name, hence the title, what is was much more easy if you're able to get out and be independent. That becomes a situation where you don't have to worry about anybody doing things for you, and you feel better about yourself. And I'm not saying to be proud of, just saying being proud that you, because a lot of people probably do want to see, but just accept the fact that you are visually impaired, and do what you need to do in order to make your life a little easier. But know that there are people in this world who won't look at you the same way, who feel that you are, quote unquote, on a lesser scale. So you're gonna, always having to prove yourself, and that's being black, that's being a woman, that's being blind, that's being a person that's in a wheelchair.
and if you're proving yourself to yourself. You don't have to prove anything to anybody.
That's real talk. That's real talk. So, with that being said, as we bring this topic to a close, I want to thank you again for coming and assisting me with this particular topic because it needed to have been touched on.
You
And
know,
yeah,
I always love having conversations with you.
for
We have
real,
we have like the best conversation.
I appreciate it. No, you're a good conversation person, if that's a word. But anyway, we're allowed to make up our own words because this is our show. But
It's a word because you said it.
okay. Well, I want to, if y'all want to send some comments, let us know what y'all think in the comments. Please, again, like, share, and subscribe, tag, or even if you see us on Facebook. I'm gonna let Jennifer close it out by telling you all about her uh, YouTube channel.
So my YouTube channel is Jennifer's Open Book. Again, it's JINNERFER apostrophe S space OPEN space BOOK. My motto is that we don't believe in filters, and that's because I say what's on my mind. I say what I mean what I say, and everything that I say is to make you feel good. It's to motivate you to be a better person, to be a better you, to love you. It's all about self love over there. I touch on things that we have to deal with in the blind and visually impaired community, but I also touch on things just just human situations. So come over there, check me out sometime. I look forward to having you. I welcome all questions, comments. So I'll see you over there.
Okay. Well, with that being said, excuse me, y'all. Thanks for supporting Third Eye Visions, and I am out.